Hi everyone, Ashley Stamatinos here. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited that you're here. I have a very special treat for you today. I have Mia Hewett with me. And for those of you who are not yet familiar with Mia, let me introduce her to you. So Mia Hewett is an international speaker, a world-class leader, and performance catalyst. Her specialty is results. She supports entrepreneurs, multi-level marketers, and small business owners in up-leveling by turning their yearly income into their monthly. Their biggest source of pain is knowing what to do and emotionally not doing it. They know they were meant for greatness, and yet they don't know how to achieve it. They worry if they will ever reach their goals or secretly wonder if they're even good enough. How does she do it? By supporting them in reprogramming their minds to silence that inner critic, that little voice inside their head that says that they don't matter, or is constantly questioning if what they're doing is even right, or telling themselves that they're not good enough. You might be familiar with this internal critic voice inside of your head that she's working with for clients on. Working with Mia, they experience paradigm shifts and massive breakthroughs that remove all of their blind spots, that allow them to see clearly, make accurate decisions, learn how to work smarter, not harder, and to maximize their results. They achieve self-mastery in clarity, focus, direction, confidence, certainty, and faith in achieving results. Mia has co-owned and operated a multiple seven-figure business, led teams to greatness, and ran the 5 major world marathons, and leaves a lasting impact everywhere she goes. I adore Mia. I am so excited to share this interview with you. So now that you know a little bit more about Mia, let's get right into it and start the interview.
So share something with me that really, really matters to you so I can connect with that.
Highly sensitive children is something I am very passionate about. Yeah. Love that.
Okay. And tell me why. Why is that so important?
You know, it's always been a lifelong calling. I've worked a very long time with highly sensitive adults. And
yes.
I started about 15 years ago, really delving into kids. And then I had my own highly sensitive child. So it was like I was preparing for him.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yay. Good. Well,
that felt good.
Were you a highly sensitive child yourself, is what you're saying? And that's what led all inside of this, the looking and the discovery of what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. I was a highly sensitive child, but I'm very extroverted. So I'm not the norm. A lot of them are very introverted. And I'm highly, highly empathic. And that was a big part of my journey, being an emotional sponge. And one of the things that was so fascinating about your work that I was gravitating towards so much is going from survival to thriving. And that's so much of my journey, and probably a lot of the people that you're working with, going from survival to thriving. So
absolutely. 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 I see that everywhere. It just is inside of for me growing up, if there's anyone like me, I always knew that I was meant for more. There was this feeling of I'm just meant for so much more, and I didn't know how.
Yeah.
I think for me, it was really inside of that knowing there's a greatness, and yet not knowing how to make a difference, or not knowing how to get the results. And I grew up really poor. And so I would see all these people around me having this tremendous success. And my biggest pain was I didn't know how to get those results. Why? How did they get those results? And so as a child, I was very much an introvert. And my biggest problem was consistently trying to find ways to motivate myself to do what I thought needed to be done. So I only really had one strategy.
Okay.
Which was try harder.
Interesting.
That's frustrating for me when I would do that based on what people's opinions and advice was. They would just tell me to just keep trying. And yet, it would be really frustrating because sometimes I get results, sometimes I wouldn't. And it was like, why? Why is that? Right?
Absolutely.
And that constantly drove me. and then it would leave me in this self-sabotaging loop of like wondering, like, am I ever going to meet my goals? And maybe I'm just not good enough. And that, I think, is the key inside of that survival, right? Is like that self-sabotaging loop of it's always going to come back to, in surviving, we're always not good enough, not worthy enough. There's something wrong with me. All of that self-sabotaging surviving patterns, which I call ego.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's all our ego. And so, helping distinguish between what's ego and what's authentic self is it's actually the work that I do. How to thrive is literally all going to come from authenticity, because when we are in our authenticity, when we are in our power, it's when what we think, what we say, what we feel, and what we do are all in alignment.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And that is our greatest power. Like when we are that, we are our highest expression of ourselves. We are our best version of ourselves. And that's, what I'm standing for, that people really get, because I didn't get that back then. And so, back then it was all about, like, I never really stopped to slow down and really think when I was going through all of that for the longest time, why it took me so long to figure this out. I never like slowed down to go, well, what is the logic in continuing until death to try to seek a breakthrough, doing the same of like the more of the same pattern, just like,
right.
Like, of course that defies law. Like, duh, Mia, like you're not going to get there from there. And so,
You're like, let's do something different.
Yeah, let's do something completely polar opposite, right?
Yeah.
Like let's not keep doing. But that was my biggest blind spot. My biggest blind spot back there was my mindset. Like my mindset was my biggest part of my problem. And that's why I coach mindset, because I did go on to achieve many successes, took my first company to, that I co-owned, to a multi-million-dollar level. And so forth. And now on my second company doing that as well. And I can see that what separates my successful self from my unsuccessful self is the mindset shift.
Yeah.
Shifted was inside of how I saw myself, how I saw the world, and what I repeatedly did, like, or what I repeatedly do. As habits. So that's how I stopped surviving, and I actually started thriving in life. And that really makes a big difference for anybody listening out there. It's like, it's really inside of that. Like there's so many misunderstandings. And I can answer any questions you have. Like we can dive into anything you want to pull apart, but there's so many misunderstandings that people have that are in their belief systems, in their mindsets, that they've been taught from well-meaning parents, even some not well-meaning parents, generations of just being taught beliefs and values and habits of things that don't work.
And how we buy those as real. And then that has so much a part of how we begin to function, because we're seeing life through those lenses. I remember there was an email that I read, and you have such wonderful emails for all of you that are listening. Her email list is so lovely and so thoughtful and so educational. And there was an email where I think it was actually about going from survival to thrival. And you talked about how you, as a young child, had a traumatic experience. And, every time you got on stage, you thought about that fear, or that I'm going to get hurt, I think was the lens that you looked through every day. Can you talk a little bit about those lenses and how the experiences carry through like that?
Yes. So every single person has had a traumatic experience. I just want to say that, because as a society, we tend to judge what is trauma, like meaning like, because every one of my entrepreneurs that come to me, right, like my multi-level marketers, my business owners that come to me, when I dive deep into their, like, I spend 5 hours with them the very first time we ever work one-on-one together, and I literally go through and help them clear up all what's in their program, all their beliefs that so why I say that is every single one of them will say to me, but Mia, really, it was no big deal. Like, no, I haven't really had a trauma. Because they think a trauma is going to look like a death.
Yeah.
They don't see trauma as the biggest trauma that I have found. And John Bradshaw, who's now dead, he's deceased. He wrote the book Healing the Shame That Binds You. And it's very fascinating because he said that the number one learned domestic violence in America, right, or anywhere really, is shame.
Yeah.
Is shame. So every single person that I have ever coached, worked with, and so forth, the trauma comes from the shame. See, everybody thinks it's fear that people are afraid of. And what I have found in all of my work, and for myself as well, like what really got me to live from my authentic self and no longer live in ego, is I really found that it's the shame. It's the shame of an experience. And so every single person that's listening has had that, because I have not found a human being that has been raised without any shame and guilt. And that is the number one thing that happens to us. And in the moment that trauma happens, where an experience happens and we feel utter shame, that's the moment where we then no longer feel it's safe to be who we are, which is our authentic self.
Well
right?
said. Yep.
And in that moment of trauma, we literally separate. That's a little bit too strong of a word, but I don't have another word for it. We literally separate and we become a false self, which is our ego, to protect us in that moment. And then in that moment of the false self, now we only have two ways to live from false self. We either have to try to become more than human, which is superiority ego.
Right.
Or we become less than human, which is inferiority ego. Right? Because it's like, it's all inside of the false self. Now, the fascinating thing about this is, I call it like Inception Day, right? When this happens, because it's like the movie Inception. Have you ever watched that movie?
I love every movie that director, made. I was like, I need to buy them all. They're amazing.
Okay, good. Yeah. I love Inception because I often relate to it like that, where it's like in the moment that it happens, and like I'm talking like some, they're 2 years old, they're 1, they're 5, they're 7, like all of the days that these happen, the ages that we are when this created. Mine was 5. And the day that Inception Day happens, right, it literally is, the most fascinating part is we create this protection, this false self, so that we can't be seen. And yet we forget we created it.
Yes. That's so true. That's so true. And yes, a lot of people are blaming others for that false self. They're looking.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%, because that's the ego's job. The ego's job is, the reason we created ego is to protect us, and so that we couldn't be with something. So it's like the blame comes from our ego of like, it's like, I'm not capable. I don't like really what's really happening, right? Like I'm not really capable of being with this. So it has to be you. Can't be me. Right? And again, I say that with the most loving compassion, because people have really had some severe shame and trauma that has happened in their lives. And so, of course, they're going to of course, they're going to blame. Like, I really want to say this, because I operate inside of universal truths and universal laws. I don't use opinions and so forth, which is, what caused my greatest suffering, is listening to people's opinions that it really just didn't work that way. So there's a great universal truth, the law of polarity. And the law of polarity says that nowhere in the universe exists a half of something. Everything exists in a whole and exists in an equal and opposite. So what does that mean? That means if there's an up, there's a down. If there's a left, there's a right. If there's an in, there's an out. So that means if there is a problem, the solution must equally exist at the same moment in time. not a different moment, right? The polar, equal, and opposite must exist in every moment. So if lack exists, abundance exists. So why is this important? Because, you know, we need, like, in understanding, there really is no such thing as a problem.
I agree.
And yet we're taught that problems are normal. It's just the way of life.
Right. And they're real. Problems are real.
Yeah, and they're real. And I'm not saying that it's not, that those people are not experiencing that in the moment. It's not what I'm saying. Right. So it is real in the sense that you can experience having a problem. But what has to happen to experience a problem is you have to then not be present to the equal and opposite solution that must equally be available. So I'm not saying in any way that what people are feeling are not, that's not really happening. It is. And the way to understand that, it's kind of like this. Like, people could say, like, if my computer breaks down, people could say, oh, well, Mia, you have a problem. But the truth is, I just have a misunderstanding, because I don't understand the internal workings of this computer. So I have to take it to somebody who doesn't have that same misunderstanding. And they actually fix it. You could say that about my car, right? Like, I drive a Range Rover, and it's like, if my car breaks down, it's like, I have no idea how I'm to fix this car. Like, because it's not that I have a problem. I have a misunderstanding. I really don't understand how that car goes other than I turn the key.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, from what I'm hearing you talk about, it actually sounds to me like what you're talking about, the equal opposite and everything as a whole. Everything, in my mind, I'm looking at life as spherical. You know, everything is whole. Everything is, you know, non-polarity, really, even though there's an equal opposite. But it's like, oh, your car breaks down. It's like, you're basically sharing how we can sort of, the word that comes to my mind, and you can use your own words, but it's like, we're unstoppable. We cannot be, you know, we cannot fall down, be broken from these experiences if we're willing to look at all the possibilities, right?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm exactly saying that the lie we've been taught is that problems are just the way of life, and it's a lie. When the truth is that to every problem, there's a solution. And one of the things that is so clear to me from somebody who used to be so poor and now, you know, has had extreme wealth, I really get present to the thing that the successful people are doing different than the unsuccessful is when a problem happens, the unsuccessful run and they're afraid of it. The successful go, ooh, because now there's a solution that people will pay for.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So like, it's inside of a mindset shift, right? It's not that, like, you know, it's not greater than that. And so, you know, my people are like just killing it. Like, they're just like, the results.
Like it.
Yeah, they're amazing. Like, you know, I mean, I'm just like, I love, like, I get so much of a high and a fulfillment from their results. You know, I've got a guy right now, and he's worked with me about 10 months, and he does more, what he used to do in a month, he does in production in a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love that.
He makes more money than he's ever made in his life. I have another guy who, in his testimonial that he actually just gave on my Facebook review, he made more money in 5 months. He's made more money with me than he made his whole last year in the entire year.
Amazing.
And this is not because it's like they're doing it, right? The cool thing, like why this works is it's because success is an inside job first. The mind must arrive at that destination before your life will.
Yes. I hear so many people say they don't want to start with the mindset work. Just tell me how to make the money. What's the strategy? And I almost feel like you probably would also say, no, we need to work on the foundational elements of mindset first. And that will allow you to receive more abundance, to get more in alignment. But you tell me what you say about that when people are like, just talk to me about the strategy, how to make money, and they don't want to work on the mindset first.
Well, like, I just go right at that. What, you know, for you not to have the result, what would you have to believe about yourself to not have this result? Like, we have to start where they're at. One thing that I've learned in doing this now for so long is I used to want to start them further than where they were. Like I wanted to be like, let me give you the strategy, because I can tell you how this is going to really, really be amazing. Like I wanted to start them further than where they were. And then what would happen is, you know, they couldn't get there because I was ahead of where they are. Most people, where they are in their mind, they are either like why they haven't gotten traction, because success needs momentum. And the momentum hasn't happened because either they think they're further than where they are and they're not really there, or they actually are putting themselves behind where they really are, and they're really not there either.
So it's very uncommon for them to be aware where they really are.
Like the first step is we've got to get really present to where you are. Because the clarity of where you are is where you are. And where you are is not, there's nothing wrong. I don't come from any judgment. Like working with me, like there's no judgment. Judgment is ego.
Totally.
There's no judgment. I am not judging anybody thinking they should be further, they should be behind. But where the real value is wherever you are. Let's be there, and now let's go. Like now, where are we going to take you next? So I'm always where they are and taking them what would give them the most value right now in what's next. So it is a and it can go fast. This is not anything that takes time. So that is a lie. I had a guy one time tell me. I said, tell me the results you want to make. And so he said, I want to make, I need 1,000 recruits and I need to get them and it's going to take me 3 years. And I said, well, first of all, let's just be straight. It doesn't take 1,000. It's not 1,000 recruits. You don't need 1,000 recruits to make that kind of money. You need 20 to 40 highly effective to get to those numbers, And I said, the second thing is it's not a time issue. It's a leverage issue. You're not leveraging your time, right? Because it doesn't take 3 years to get there. I am part of a mastermind group, and the interesting, fascinating thing to me was when I listen to their stories. I'm not the one who runs the mastermind. I like do this on purpose I love to see different people's mindsets and where they're at. And this particular mindset, because I coach, I've had people say, well, you should be a coach's coach, but I actually love helping people create the most amount of money the fastest way. So I actually love working with network marketers, business owners, like I've got a divorce attorney and a ton of network marketers and,
good to know.
So I have very few coaches. To be honest, like, people, I'm more of a grassroots and like show you how. I've taken this young girl, this pet sitter who never made more than 2,000 working 2 jobs. And within a month, she quit her second job, did the pet sitting full time and made $5,000 and has now gone on to create that every month. So this isn't a time issue. That's what I find is that like in this mastermind, I will listen to them and they'll say like, it took them 18 years to make 250,000. It's 19 years to get to 300,000. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it doesn't take that. Because see, time is the biggest lie in the sense that it's human made, right? There's no universal law of time.
Right.
It doesn't even exist. It's not a universal law. Time is what we created as a human construct. We created it as, and it's the number one killer of, limiter of quantum leaping. See, without time, we can quantum leap results.
Yes.
But if we add time into the equation, right? Like look for yourself. When you add time, you start going, oh, I can't do that. Like let's say I've only made $2,000. Like just as an example, if I've only made $2,000, then logic would tell me, oh, well, then the most I can make is $2,000 next month, right? Because I don't have enough time.
Right.
When it's really not a time issue and it's not, it's logic that's keeping you out of the game. Because if without the time issue, like you could go, well, what if so I made 2,000, how would I make 4? How do I make 4? Right? Like double it, right? Like quantum leaping is about doubling and letting go of the limiter of time.
I have noticed so much within what I have received information wise from you prior to meeting you today, and also within the space of today. You ask a lot of questions, and what I personally love so much about that is there's no judgment in that. That's allowing the person to have their own awareness, and it's so empowering. And I so love questions. And I love so much that you do that. So are you doing that a lot within your practice, asking a lot of questions of your clients and helping them come to their awareness? Or tell me a little bit about why you use questions so much.
Yeah. Well, I love that question. Great question. Right? I love that question, Ashley. That was awesome. I love that question because, again, inside of where I'm coming from, self-mastery has no finish line. Right. And I'm on a game of self-mastery. And the interesting thing that I have found in doing this work is that in the beginning, how I failed, right, until I really got this, right, is like I wanted to just give this to people. So I wanted to tell them how to do it.
Right.
Let me just tell you. Let me just save you all the suffering, right? And let me just tell you exactly how to do this. And not that I don't tell them exactly. There is a science. There is an actual science to creating any result you want, 100%. And I wish I would have known that. I'm 50 now. I wish somebody would have given that to me when I was 18 and suicidal. I would love to have had that science. I just never knew I was going to be the one teaching it because I was the person seeking this. I really wanted the answers. The fascinating thing is that what I've learned from coaching people for so long now is that it's not in what I tell them. It's in what they realize and experience inside themselves.
Absolutely.
So it's not, yes, I have to clear up misunderstandings 100%, but it's not me telling them why it's a misunderstanding. It's me helping. I already know what the misunderstanding is before they're going to find it. I already know it. But when I would just tell them, I'm going to call myself out, like in the past when I would be like, let me just tell you, let me just hurry up and get to the punchline, right? Like, let me hurry up and give you this. Right. What would happen? Right? I know, because I really love people and I want them to have everything they want.
Yeah.
So, let me just hurry up and give it to you. But what happened is that was more of my ego trying to prove that I was good enough. Like I'm really valuable here. Let me show you how valuable I am. I can help you. When that is actually not what is the greatest service to them. What the greatest service to them is that I ask them the questions that I know will help them internalize and realize where the misunderstanding is, such that they see the truth. And then the truth is what sets them free.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's the truth that sets them free. And then now I show them and I help them show them how to apply the truth, right? So like that, they're not going to know that without me helping them with the science part of that. But the actual realization of it is such that the reason my people have such tremendous results is I don't leave it in theory. I don't coach theory. I literally help them find, like everybody, this is like what people keep saying to me over and over again. Everything now that I've ever read, Mia, now is making sense. Now they'll reread a book that like Think and Grow Rich. And they're like, oh my gosh, now I get it. Because I take it out of concept and I help them actually live it in practice. So they become, And so the reason why that used to drive me insane. It's like, I've taken so many freaking courses. I have bought so many books. I have spent close to $500,000 in my own coaching with the best of the leaders, like top leaders. And they don't know this. Like what I coach.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to save people a lot of money. and not because I don't, not because I don't believe people should be well paid and valued, but what I want to save people the money of the searching for is that the way that the methodology I use, which I call aligned intelligence, I help people live in alignment and how to live it in themselves. And that's what produces their results. It's living their greatness. And it's inside of how to do that, and how to do that is where the real value is. It's not in me telling them anything, but I do know what's keeping them. Like I of course I do, because we can't give something to somebody that we do not first have ourselves. There's no way. We can't give you something. I can't give you something that I don't already have. And I'm going to say this. Some of the best people who are out there, like they're killing it in results, they don't know how they're doing it, or they didn't know how they actually did that. So they're not the best coaches, right? I have actually struggled enough that I actually I have failed so many times that I actually know exactly how I actually did create the results. And then instead of me telling them how to do it, I help them find how it is that they're like, what it is that they did. Like, we dissect it such that they see the truth, and now they can apply the misunderstanding, and then they can get that result. So it's all practicality. Like, I don't
practical, applicable.
Oh my gosh, yes, thank God. Like, please give me more of that.
I so agree. I love practical, applicable, and I agree with you. The big theory out there, it's great, and you want more of it, and it feels good, but it's like, how do you implement that and actually see the results? Yeah.
That's it. That's the difference inside of what I do. I don't leave it as theory. There's nothing somebody's going to come to me and go, oh my God, I just got this amazing insight. You will not, people go, oh my God, that's amazing. And then they go, oh my gosh, now I know exactly how to implement. Like, that's what I'm all about, implementation.
Yeah.
Knowledge is not what produces results.
Right.
So, and let me just say that, because a lot of people have that, because we're taught that false premise in school. So in school, we're taught if you can just like memorize something and recite it and then repeat it back, it's enough to get an A.
Yeah.
That is not what happens in a result. Being aware of something, having knowledge about something, does not equal a result. Awareness is the first step in the science of it, but it is not enough to get a result. And that's the disappointing factor, because I kept thinking, well, I'm aware, I have this knowledge, but knowledge is not the same. There's a few more steps that needs to happen, right? Like, if you know how to bake a cake, like if you just know you want a cake, is that enough to get a cake?
Yeah. Yes.
No. Right? So you first have to know you want a cake. That is a first step. You got to be clear on exactly what it is that you want. You've got to know specifically the cake you want. And then once you know the cake, like what it is you want, if you go to the store and you get like the flour and you get the ingredients, and if you just mix the flour and the sugar together, and that's all, is that enough to get a cake?
Right.
No, right? But that's not enough of the science, right? You've got to have the whole formula in order for the cake to happen. So if you now mix everything together in the right order, and yet you still don't take the actions and you put the cake in the oven, are you going to get a cake?
This is a great example. I love this. No, you're not going to get a cake. No,
you're not going to get a cake. Now, here's the thing, right? But if you do everything in the exact order, which there's an order to the result, there's an order to the science. If you do everything in baking a cake and you put it in the right order and you bake it and you put it in the oven and it bakes, what do you think, Ashley, is the chances are that you're going to get a bicycle?
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. No bicycle, probably not.
Right. So there is no way you are not going to get your cake. There is no way. Even if but that's the way results really happen. It's not this like, oh my God, I hope and pray that cake rises.
It's not just about manifesting. There's a lot of other things that go into it. I so agree.
Yes. Yes, and that's my biggest frustration is like I would go and pay for this result, and I would get like half of the equation, or I would get a piece of the equation,
right?
And I wouldn't get the whole process. And it's like, okay, I need the whole process to bake the cake, and then of course I'm not going to get a bicycle. Like, of course I'm going to get my cake, and I get to eat it.
Yes, and you get to eat it too. Well, Mia, we're already out of time. I could speak with you for so much longer. And for all of you viewers, I think we're leaving you wanting more, which I like. I like doing that. So Mia, real quick before we jump off, can you tell all the viewers how they can learn more about you and your work? And I'll include all the links below.
Awesome. Yeah. So like I would sign up from like the free how to go from surviving to thriving. Like that's a great one. Yes. And the link will be, you'll post it below because otherwise it's hard for them to remember all that. But also like my business Facebook page, I give a lot of free stuff on that. I would go visit that and like watch my videos. I do a lot of really great stuff on there, and I would just go check it out. And it's amazing. It'll clear up so many misunderstandings that people have. And that's really what I want, is so that they can have the results they want and they can thrive, because anything less is really not necessary. Like, you really are born to be successful. It is your birthright. And it's our programming, our ego, that actually takes us out. So that's what I want most for them, is I want people to stop the needless suffering. It's like, it's not necessary.
And
really.
The false beliefs that it needs to take 18, 20 years before you're successful.
Exactly.
I love it. I love your message. I love what you teach, and I love how you do it. And there's so much I don't know about what you do, but everything I've heard so far, I love it so much. So I hope all of you that are listening will continue to take the next steps with Mia and take her up on this offer, the freebie below. And be sure to subscribe to this series and get involved in the conversation by leaving a comment. We both would love to hear from you. And thank you all for joining. And a huge thank you to Mia for joining me today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Bye, everyone. See you on the next video.